This is Vagrus, the Riven Realms. It's a text-based RPG, but it's got a lot of other stuff going on too. I can describe it best as a kind of Frankenstein sort of game. Imagine someone took the overworld map from a game like Mountain Blade and combined it with RPG elements from Sunless Sea, and then they used the Darkest dungeon combat system. I thought this was an original observation, but this is pretty much exactly what they were going for in the advertising. So you move around the map and keep your company fed, but you've also got eldritch horrors to kill. It's also a sandbox, but it's not like a Ubisoft sandbox where the world is your oyster and you can do whatever you want. It's more like a desert sort of sandbox. Sure, you can move in any direction you like, but you're probably going to dehydrate before you get anywhere. Before I carry on, I just wanted to ask if you'd consider liking and subscribing, if you enjoy my content and want to see more. I'm a small channel, so every little bit helps. Also, if you've played Vagrus the Riven Realms, I'd love to hear what you think about the game in the comment section. First and foremost, Vagrus is tough. Really tough. It warns you a bunch of times and even insists that you try the easy mode first, and maybe that's the better option for most players, because the normal mode can be mind-bogglingly difficult. There are a lot of different systems interacting with each other, and not keeping track of a single number or not knowing what an icon means usually results in your instant death. Just so that you can get an idea, you have to manage food, wages, slave obedience, workforce requirements, guard requirements, energy, morale, and the list goes on. You can lose the game in just the first couple of days because you forgot to put someone on guard duty or because there wasn't food for sale at an outpost, so you just starve in the desert. It's unrelenting, and the worst part is that a lot of the game-ending events can just be random. You can just be walking in the desert and you get attacked by ghosts. Do you have anyone in your party that does magical damage? If not, then you might lose a few workers and a few soldiers. Now you don't have enough manpower, so your whole caravan slows down, and then you can't make it to a settlement in time, and then you starve in the desert. Again, it's very death spirally. Fortunately though, it's got a very lenient save system. So, you come across things that'll ruin your playthrough and you can just save scum the challenges until they don't exist. It's not a perfect system, but it works. I'll elaborate more on it later. In terms of graphics, we're working with three things: paintings, PDFs, and PNGs. Oh, and an Excel spreadsheet here and there. The game has got this pretty overworld map that you traverse, and a more mappy map to boot. There is some great artwork for all the cities and events, and it's all accompanied by text, and together it paints a pretty good picture. Most of the areas look otherworldly. There's only a few that look a little Microsoft Painty. The characters, however, probably stand out as the worst. I think it's because they chose this kind of strange art style for them. Maybe this is a budget constraint, but it kind of looks like a browser game when it comes to the combat. It's a pity because the rest of the game is gorgeous, and these characters have really great written personalities, but they look like this. Some of them look okay, but yeah, the rest are bad. The artwork for all the locations is really nice. The descriptions for these and other events in the game are told entirely through text. A lot of text. The devs even warn you that this is a reading game. I'm not big into games like this, but I still remember some of the locations and interactions because they're written so well. Like, for example, you come across a salt mine, and the cocaine-addicted quartermaster is so sick and tired of mining salt, and he makes sure you know about it. Or when I was chatting to the head of the Slavers Guild, and I could ask her what she thought about slavery. She was predictably pretty pro-slavery, but I don't know, I found the whole conversation quite funny. It's got a similar vibe to Sunless Sea. It's quirky in some places and macabre in others, and sometimes you just come across things that just aren't meant to be understood. Finally, we have the Excel spreadsheets. Vagrus is one part a trading game, so you need to know who is selling what and for how much. Knowing how to read this chart is going to make the difference between a wealthy traveler and a broke one. And more on this later. The setting of the game is amazing, and it's embodied in a lot of the locations you come across. I'm going to show you a few of the names of places and what they look like, and I want you to guess what the setting is. If you guessed post-apocalyptic, then you're correct. But it's with a twist. It's not post-apocalyptic because mankind destroyed itself with nukes. It's post-apocalyptic because the Romans were too raunchy and conqueror-y, and all the gods flipped the table and left. This also may have tore a hole in reality itself. So it's the Bronze Age and it's high fantasy. The world is a Mad Max wasteland, but we're not fighting over oil. We're fighting over obsidian mines and scrap copper. In Vagrus the Riven Realms, you play as a Vagrus. It's a traveller or caravan master, and you're in charge of a comitatus, which is a merchant military convoy. In the post-calamity world, travelling is dangerous, so people just hide in settlements and get idiots like you to do stuff for them. The opportunities are endless, and there are stacks of money to be made. You literally have a monopoly on transportation. And, well, that's your entire story. There isn't really a main questline, and you're kind of just free to mess around. All the companions you meet have questlines too, and so do most major settlements, so there's plenty of stuff to do. It's not like Skyrim though, where people just kind of throw their problems at you when you walk through a town. It costs money and effort to learn about quests. Doing quests also costs money because you have to travel, and you only get money and cool stuff when you finish a quest. So a decent chunk of the game becomes, how can I make money? And, more importantly, how can I save money? Spoilers, slavery. When you start off, all you can really do is run small supply runs for factions and slowly build up your reputation. More money means you can buy more beasts of burden, which means you have more space, which means you can do more supply runs, which means more money. Animals need handlers, so you hire workers, which then need guards for protection. All of these guys need food, which also costs money. It's an endless cycle, and it's easy to fuck up. The game even warns you that expanding too quickly is dangerous, and it really is. Sometimes downsizing is even a good idea, like when you need to travel across the map. I'm kind of embarrassed to say it, but all of this management is actually really fun. It's hard to master, but once you do, you really can excel at the game. However, if you're the kind of person who doesn't enjoy this sort of stuff, then it might feel like you have to go through all of this hassle just to actually play the game. I think that's why the easy mode exists, so you can play the RPG parts with less of the commerce grind. Speaking of hassle, the worst part of the whole Vagrus experience is probably the combat. Sunless Sea also had problems with figuring out what the best form of combat is for a text-based RPG, and I'm not sure them or the Vagrus devs have figured it out. In Vagrus, combat takes place in two stages. There's a comitatus combat and a companion combat. The former is alright, it's a simple numbers game and some smart maneuvers can help you win a tough fight. The companion combat, however, is where I take issue. It's hard to look at. It has Darkest Dungeons levels of complexity, but you're really limited in what companions you can find, so a lot of the combat just becomes hitting the enemy until they fall over. There also isn't enough visual feedback. You have to read the combat log to figure out who is stunned and who's bleeding. Also, it runs really badly for some reason. There's not a lot going on here, but my game stutters every time the AI goes. It must be running calculations or something. This needs a lot of improvement visually. And, well, the sound design doesn't really help out either. I kind of saw this coming in the intro trailer. They use a really cheesy stock whip sound, and most of the other sounds in the game are of a kind of similar quality. All the stuff in the overworld and the settlements is fine, but yeah, it's really bad in the combat. After a while though, you kind of get used to the jank of it all. Vagrus is a really long game, and there's a lot of content, so after the 20th combat you just kind of stop caring. Like most games, the visuals just kind of melt away into numbers. You care less about what you're seeing and more about min-maxing your damage output. I mentioned I'd get back to it, and it's something I really wanted to talk about. It's the save system, but more importantly how it interacts with the rest of the game. See, there's a lot of dice rolling in Vagrus. It's a pen and paper inspired game, so randomness is part of the experience. Almost everything is a dice roll out of 100, and the better you are at something, the more likely you are to get a good roll. Here's the problem though, I abused the crap out of the save system to avoid rolling badly, and I didn't feel bad doing it either. I mean, you're encouraged to. Imagine playing Dungeons and Dragons and every time you roll badly, you just die. You don't get a reroll or anything, you just starve in the desert again. So, Vagrus overcomes this and just lets you save scum. Saving at the right time and the right place becomes kind of a part of the gameplay loop. I can see why there isn't an Iron Man no save mode, because you would just get like 2 minutes into the game and then get a bad encounter and die. So, I guess they chose the best system they could have. It's super save scummy, but I don't see how anything would be better than this. I was having a blast with Vagrus the Riven Realms. I was trading, doing quests, and just scraping by, and overall having a really fun time with it. I clocked in an embarrassing 50 hours in 2 weeks, and then I got hit by a massive wall in the game. I hadn't realized it until I read some of the negative Steam reviews for the game, but one person mentioned that you can't travel to the further places in the map. And I thought, well, this can't be true, so I set out to find the edge of the world. And lo and behold, they were right. This is the map you are presented with, and this is the actual playable area. I assumed quest lines would open up, but nope, 50 hours in and no doors have opened. Only more walls have appeared. I was kind of upset. I just assumed I had more weird sights to see, but nope, I had seen them all, and all that was left was more reading. Ah, dear viewer, I've done it again. I've crapped all over a game I really like. I enjoyed Vagrus the Riven Realms, and I think as it stands it's a great experience. It's well polished for an indie game, and it's got a lot to offer in terms of story. This is the first game from Lost Pilgrim Studios, and it's pretty competent. I look forward to what else they have to offer, even if it is DLC. I think Vagrus the Riven Realms is worth some attention. Maybe it promises more than it can deliver, but it still delivers, well, at least 50 hours of fun. Thanks for watching.